Wikipedia.com. Kuru disease. Kuru is a very rare, incurable, and invariably fatal neurodegenerative disorder that was formerly common among the Foray people of Papua New Guinea. Kuru is caused by the transmission of abnormally found proteins, prion proteins, which lead to symptoms such as tremors, loss of coordination, and neurodegeneration. Specialty neuropathology symptoms: body tremors, random outbursts of laughter, gradual loss of coordination, duration 11 to 14 months, causes transmission of infected prion proteins. Risk factors: coming into close contact with the brain of an infected individual. Diagnosis method: neurological examination. Differential diagnosis: Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Prognosis: always fatal. The term Kuru derives from the Foray word kuria, or juria, to shake, due to the body tremors that are a classic symptom of the disease, and Kuru itself means trembling. It is also known as the laughing sickness, due to the pathological bursts of laughter which are a symptom of the disease. It is now widely accepted that Kuru was transmitted among members of the Foray tribe of Papua New Guinea via funeral cannibalism. Deceased family members were traditionally cooked and eaten, which was thought to help free the spirit of the dead. Women and children usually consumed the brain, the organ in which infectious prions were most concentrated, thus allowing for transmission of Kuru. The disease was therefore more prevalent among women and children. The epidemic likely started when a villager developed sporadic Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease and died. When villagers ate the brain, they contracted the disease, and it was then spread to other villagers that ate their infected brains. While the Foray people stopped consuming human meat in the early 1960s, when it was first speculated to be transmitted via endocannibalism, the disease lingered due to Kuru's long incubation period of anywhere to 10 to 50 years. The epidemic declined sharply after discarding cannibalism from 200 deaths per year in 1957 to 1 or no deaths annually in 2005, which sources disagreeing on whether the last known Kuru victim died in 2005 or 2009. Signs of symptoms: Kuru, a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, is a disease of the nervous system that causes physiological and neurological effects which ultimately lead to death. It is characterized by progressive cerebellar ataxia, or loss of coordination and control over muscle movement. The preclinical or asymptomatic phase, also called the incubation period, averages 10 to 13 years, but can be as short as 5, and has been estimated to last as long as 50 years or more after initial exposure. The clinical stage, which begins at the first onset of symptoms, lasts an average of 12 months. The clinical progression of Kuru is divided into 3 specific stages: the ambulant, sedentary, and terminal stages. While there is some variation in these stages between individuals, they are highly conserved among the affected population. Before the onset of clinical symptoms, an individual can also present the prodromal symptoms, including headache and joint pain in legs. In the first ambulant stage, the infected individual may exhibit unsteady stance and gait, decreased muscle control, tremors, difficulty pronouncing words, dysarthria, and titubation. This stage is named the ambulant because the individual is still able to walk around despite symptoms. In the second sedentary stage, the infected individual is incapable of walking without support and suffers ataxia and severe tremors. Furthermore, the individual shows signs of emotional instability and depression, yet exhibits uncontrolled and sporadic laughter. Despite the other neurological symptoms, tendon reflexes are still intact at this stage of the disease. In the third and final terminal stage, the infected individual existing symptoms like ataxia progress to the point where they are no longer capable of sitting without support. New symptoms also emerge. The individual develops dysphagia or difficult swallowing, which can lead to severe malnutrition. They may also become incontinent, lose the ability or will to speak, and become unresponsive to their surroundings despite maintaining consciousness. Towards the end of the terminal stage, patients often develop chronic ulcerated wounds that can be easily infected. An infected person usually dies within 3 months to 2 years after the first terminal stage symptoms, often because of pneumonia or infection. Kuru is largely localized to the foray people and people with whom they intermarried. It was thought to have been transmitted through ritualistic cannibalism, though this evidence has been questioned. Sergei Duckett, a leading expert in mental poisoning of the brain, presents the case that the description of the disease points to mercury poisoning. Mercury was used by the locals in the processing of gold. The distribution of Kuru cases and the timing of the cases support the mercury poisoning. William Ahrens claims that Katchuskin never actually witnessed cannibalism himself. Researchers who worked with the foray in the 50s claimed that cannibalism was suppressed in 1948. The foray people ritualistically cooked and consumed body parts of their family members following their death to symbolize respect and mourning. Because the brain is the organ enriched in the infectious agent prion, women and children who consumed brain and viscera had much higher likelihood of being infected than men who preferentially consumed muscles. The infectious agent is a misfolded form of a host-encoded protein called prion. PRP prion proteins are encoded by the prion protein gene. The two forms of prion are designated as PRPC, which is normally folded protein, and PRPSC, a misfolded form which gives rise to the disease. The two forms do not differ in their amino acid sequence. However, the pathogenic PRPSC isoform differs from the normal PRPC form in its secondary and tertiary structure. The PRPSC isoform is more enriched in beta sheets, while the normal PRPC form is enriched in alpha helices. The differences in conformation allow PRPSC to aggregate and be extremely resistant to protein degradation by enzymes or by other chemical and physical means. The normal form, on the other hand, is susceptible to complete proteolysis and soluble in non-denaturing detergents. It has been suggested that pre-existing or acquired PRPSC can promote the conversion of PRPC into PRPSC, which going on to convert other PRPC. This initiates a chain reaction that allows for its rapid propagation, resulting in the pathogenesis of prion disease. Transmission. In 1961, Australian Michael Alpers conducted extensive field studies among the foray, accompanied by anthropologist Shirley Lindbaum. Their historical research suggested the epidemic may have originated around 1900 from a single individual who lived on the edge of foray territory and who is thought to have spontaneously developed some form of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Alpers and Lindbaum's research conclusively demonstrated the Kuru spread easily and rapidly in the foray people due to their endo-cannibalistic funeral practices, in which relatives consumed the bodies of the deceased to return the life force of the deceased to the hamlet, a foray societal subunit. Corpses of family members were often buried for days, then exhumed once the corpses were infested with maggots, at which point the corpses would be dismembered and served with the maggots as a side dish. Although ingestion of the prion particles can lead to disease, a high degree of transmission occurred if the prion particles could reach the subcutaneous tissue. With elimination of cannibalism because of Australian colonial law enforcement and the local Christian missionaries' efforts, Alpers' research showed that Kuru was already declining among the foray by the mid-1960s. However, by the mean of incubation period of the disease is 14 years, and 7 cases were reported with latencies of 40 years or more. For those who were most genetically resilient, continuing to appear for several more decades. Sources disagree on whether the last sufferer died in 2005 or 2009. Immunity. In 2009, researchers at the Medical Research Council discovered a natural occurring variant of a prion protein in a population from Papua New Guinea that confers strong resistance to Kuru. In the study, which began in 1996, researchers asserted over 3,000 people from the affected and surrounding Eastern Highland populations and identified a variation in the prion protein G127. G127 polymorphism is the result of a missense mutation and is highly geographically restricted of regions where the Kuru epidemic was the most widespread. Researchers believe that the PRNP variant occurred very recently, estimating that the most recent common ancestor lived 10 generations ago. It is absolutely fascinating to see Darwinian principles at work here. This community of people has developed their own biologically unique response to a truly terrible epidemic. The fact that genetic evolution has happened in a matter of decades is remarkable. John Collins, Medical Research Council. The findings of the study could help researchers better understand and develop treatments for the related prion diseases, such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease and Alzheimer's disease. History. Initially, the foray people believed that causes of Kuru were to be sorcery and witchcraft, while patrol officers believed that Kuru might be psychosomatic or caused by mental factors. The foray people also thought that the magic causing Kuru was contagious. Another theory was that cassowary disease, also known as negi-negi, was the cause. The disease, the foray people believed, was caused by ghosts because of the shaking and strange behavior that comes with Kuru. Attempting to cure this, they would feed victims pork and cassorian's bark. Prior to the late 1950s, patrol officers thought that Kuru was psychosomatic and was caused by a trauma of Western colonialism and perpetuated by beliefs in sorcery and witchcraft. It was not until 1957 that cannibalism was investigated by Gajewski and shown with data of to be the cause. However, action was not considered a priority because the link to cannibalism was thought to be either too unusual or that there was insufficient evidence linking Kuru to cannibalism. Cannibalism, however, was a reasonable enough explanation for Kuru that the Australian administration banned the practice of feasting on the dead, and cannibalism was nearly eliminated by 1960, while the number of cases of Kuru was decreasing. Those in medical research were able to properly investigate Kuru, which led to the modern proposition of prawns being the cause. Kuru was first described in official reports by Australian officers patrolling the eastern highlands of Papua New Guinea in the early 1950s. Some unofficial accounts place Kuru in the region as early as 1910. In 1951, Arthur Carey was the first to use the term Kuru in a report to describe the new disease afflicting the Foray tribe of Papua New Guinea. In his report, Carey noted that Kuru mostly afflicted Foray women, eventually killing them. In 1953, Kuru was observed by patrol officer John MacArthur, who provided a description of the disease in his report. MacArthur believed that Kuru was merely a psychological episode resulting from the confirmed sorcery practices of the tribal people in the region. Kuru was first noted in the Foray, Yate, and Usurufa people in 1952 to 1953 by anthropologists Ronald Bernard and Catherine Berndt. However, it was not until 1957, when the Kuru disease had become an epidemic, that Daniel Carlton Kajewski, a virologist, and Vincent Villegas, a medical doctor, first started research on the disease. After the disease had festered into a big epidemic, the tribal people asked Charles Farr, a Lutheran medical officer, to come to the area to report the disease to Australian authorities. In an effort to understand the pathology of Kuru disease, Kajewski established the first experimental tests on chimpanzees for Kuru at the National Institutes for Health. The methods of the experiments was to introduce Kuru brain material to the closest human relative, the chimpanzee, and to document the behaviors of the animal until death or a negative outcome occurred. Michael Alpers, an Australian doctor, collaborated with Kajewski by providing sample brains tissues he had taken from the 11-year-old Foray girl who had died of Kuru. In his work, Kajewski was also the first to compile a bibliography of the Kuru disease. Joe Gibbs joined Kajewski to monitor and record the behavior of the apes and conduct autopsies. Within 2 years, one of the chimps, Daisy, had developed Kuru, demonstrating that an unknown disease factor was transmitted through infected biomaterial and that it was capable of crossing the species barrier to other primates. After Elizabeth Beck confirmed that this experiment brought about the first conducted transmission of Kuru, the finding was deemed a very important advancement in human medicine, leading to the award of the Nobel Prize of Physiology or Medicine to Daniel Carlton Gajusk in 1976. Subsequently, E.J. Field spent large parts of the late 1960s and the early 70s in New Guinea investigating the disease, connecting it to scrapie and multiple sclerosis. He noted similarities in the disease interaction with glial cells, including the critical observation that the infectious process may depend on structural rearrangement of the host's molecules. This was an early observation of what was to later become the prion hypothesis. In literature, the Czech immunologist, poet Miroslav Halub wrote Kuru the Smiling Death Syndrome about the disease. It's not very fun. Thank you for watching Hidden Hand. Let me know what you think below. One love, one vibration.